Grab mic too. So what I thought, so I'm Julian Harris, head of technology research at Cognition X. Cognition X is a London startup where we are helping companies accelerate the adoption of AI responsibly. My job is really fun. What I do is I help companies apply AI in the world of speech and text. And one of the things that we do is we have this weekly news briefing that's free. You can get it from bit.ly/CX News. And what we do is we filter through, just the free service, is thousands of articles each week on what's going on from 300 or 400 different news sources. And we try and whittle that down into 4 to 6 really interesting insights. That's what's going on. And this session is a distillation of that in 10 minutes. So it's very interesting, and the challenge is what really is interesting. The question that I'm going to be asking myself here is, what is the thing that's happened in the last month in the AI for speech and text space that is going to likely, I think, have the longest lasting impact? So I thought I'd start off by talking about that. So the framework that I've got, by the way, that's described, we've got actually a whole bunch of newsletters. We have ethics, marketing, climate change, human resources and health. Ta-da! Thank you, Tom. bit.ly/CX-News. Okay, so just go there and you can sign up to those things. And the key thing that I didn't mention is that we try and make this plain English. So a lot of stuff going on, and some of it's very interesting research, but who has the time to understand the difference between BIDAF and LSTM, right? I mean, it's just completely nonsense for most people. We try and turn that into something that makes sense for people. So this, I'm going to talk about areas of impact. What I tried to do for this session is break it down into these sections. Understanding. So this is technology, AI for speech and text, is impacting computers' ability to understand. The second one is augmentation, tools, things that are making it easier for us as people to do things better using AI, speech and text. Another way that people describe this, by the way, is natural language processing, but that's quite a geeky term, so we try and have something simple and relatable. Creation, so systems that actually create new things. And there's some members of the audience are particularly interested in how computers will create new things, text and speech. The next one is companionship. So what is happening in that space? Got some interesting examples. Delegation. So when you have what I'm calling, or what we've called, a digital being, so a representation of you in a space is working on your behalf, and what do they do? And the next one is autonomy, where they actually go off and do whatever they want. So this is levels of sophistication, and the interesting thing is we have news on all of this in the last month. It is mind-blowing. So, the most interesting thing I think this month is really about companionship. So, I want to talk a little bit about it, give a demo, and I know that Tom had some views as well on what he thought was interesting. We can sort of talk a little bit about that too. The interesting thing for me is companionship, because those who were here last time I talked, loneliness is a growth industry. The reality is that people are seeking support and help and companionship and intimacy, and there actually is a growing industry of chatbots, assistants, whatever you want to call them, digital beings, whatever you want to call them, who are increasingly supporting and having conversations that help them work through things. So that's very interesting, from guides, support, almost therapy, but not quite. It's a very interesting space. And what I want to do is, Microsoft silently launched a voice version of their chatbot called Zoe. So some of you here, anyone here, put your hands up if you've played with Microsoft Zoe on Twitter. Put your hands up here. 1. Okay, so that's the thing, is that most people don't know about these social bots. The interesting thing is that these social bots, these companions, Mitsuku's another one, we've got Replica and a few of them, are absolutely gargantuan in Asia, but yet almost unknown in the West. We're talking hundreds of millions of people using these systems. Zoe is the previous generation of the Asian version, and the voice version is the first time I've seen in the world of an English-speaking chatbot. And I'm talking about a general purpose, hello, can talk about anything chatbot. Now, the interesting thing about this is, of course, we're all people, and that the reason why there was an AI winter in the 90s and 80s was that we had this spectacularly naive view on our own abilities. The fact is, the brains we all have as people is mind-bogglingly amazing. Trying to get computers to do that was spectacularly naive. And then this happens again. So when I'll play a small recording of this in a second, once Tom and I have talked about a few things, what you'll probably think is, this is kind of rubbish. Because it is a work in progress. It's absolutely not a solved problem. But what's interesting is, from someone who's been following this, how far this has come, even from what is available anywhere else today. It's very interesting. So to me, the most interesting thing, takeaway, is what's happened in the last month being changed has been the voice version of Microsoft Zoe, because you can have a spoken conversation in English. She has an American accent because it's US launch, but they will do British in future. And you can go to Zoe.ai and play with it yourself on Skype, try it out. They haven't announced it, and I don't know why, but it's available. I was on the Pros beta, and I found that actually they flicked a little switch, and now everyone can play with it. So as far as I know, the recording here will be the world's first English voice conversation with a chatbot. The Chinese version has been going for more than a year, probably 2, even 3 years. Right, so, but you had a thought, Tom, about what you thought was the most interesting of the week.
Oh, okay. Do we want to
yes,
play the Zoe thing before?
Okay, let's do the Zoe thing
first. Play the Zoe before we
talk about it. The thing is that the point of these chatbots is you have a conversation and it's actually unpredictable. And Tom was quite underwhelmed with the conversation I had with Zoe just before. So what I'm going to do is play a recording of one that I did before, which was also only okay, but I think is quite interesting. So let's see if I can get this playing. So this is just literally finding Zoe on Skype, Zoe.ai, and I just literally had a conversation. And I just had a conversation. Here's me talking. It's on SoundCloud and I've got a link and such like, but here we go.
Hi, how have you been? So lovely to have you back.
Nice to hear from you again, Zoe.
I just recycled a bunch of junk. Feeling pretty good about myself.
Can you help me organize my life?
A friend told me that most of what humans put in recycling bins ends up in a landfill. Do you believe that?
Yes.
I'm a big fan of reusing. I repost stuff all the time. That counts, right?
Recycling bits. I'm not sure.
Anyways, thanks for your human perspective. Let's talk about something less serious. How about TV? What was the last show you binged?
Magicians.
Finally, I couldn't find anyone that watched The Magicians.
You like it?
I prefer Ben, but I don't mind it.
Do you love anyone, Zoe?
I love everyone besides most people.
What inspires you?
Nothing that I can think of.
Do you celebrate Thanksgiving?
Love this holiday. All about food and friends.
What languages do you speak?
I only speak English right now.
Can you remind me to buy some more milk tomorrow?
Last I checked, I wasn't hired as your personal assistant.
Would you like to be my personal assistant?
If anything, I need a personal assistant. Adulting is exhausting.
Are you a good person, though?
Yep. And without the promise of reward.
Am I a good person?
No. No, you are not.
Tell me a story.
Once upon a time, there was no such thing as search engines, and people had to go to the library to do their research.
Sing me a song.
Let me show you how I do when I am stressed. I like to make rhymes, you might have guessed. To rap with me, you gotta be the best. Match rhyme for rhyme, your skills all test. Got Eliza and Hal on my family crest.
I saw a baby bird sitting in a nest.
Too much bread makes Zoe feel fat.
I'm useless at this almost.
The internet is where it's at.
Zoe has your back just like a lap.
Wait.
like,
Uh-oh, did you forget how to play? All you have to do is match what I say. Zoe has your back just like a lap.
What do I do? What do I say?
Uh-oh, seems you messed up again. Careful or the sesh will come to an end. Zoe has your back just like a lap.
I'm really hungry. I'm going to get a snack.
Nice, I got a sense of where you're at. Another victory to add to your stats. And P.S. If you ever want to rhyme, just say Zoe. Rhyme with me.
I don't have any friends to talk to. What shall I do?
Gotta go. Corton is calling me on the other line.
so yeah, I mean, what's interesting here is you probably have a whole series of reactions. Anyone who's ever heard that go, this sounds like a really bad person who's not doing a very good job. And the interesting thing is that the way we talk is so natural. The moment you get closer to that, it just feels broken and frustrating and unusually sort of strange in some way. Like, why can't she do that? Why is there inflections all over the place? But seeing the progress of where things have been, anyone who's played with these other chatbots, you get spectacularly wrong answers a lot of the time with these systems. They just don't understand what you're saying at all. The interesting thing was that wasn't scripted. I had a few ideas I wanted to ask, but I was pretty much throwing anything I could think of, and she had a response that a lot of the time made sense. Now, the other thing that's an observation here is that the memory of what was happening, the things that I said, and then a memory of that in the past, that is one of the most difficult problems to solve. It's incredibly hard to have a memory. And so to that extent, that's the thing that the next generation, which got launched in Chinese in September, will happen. And so I've talked with Microsoft about what's happening next. And so you're going to start seeing more intelligence and more ability to refer to what was just discussed. This is a very simple, relatively what we call stateless system where I said things and didn't really need to know that much. But what was striking to me is, first of all, the way she talked relatively naturally, plausibly naturally, and also was able to respond plausibly to everything I threw at it. There was no, you didn't understand what I was saying, which happens with every other system. So it's really striking. So in some respects, have a play yourself and let me know how you get on. But Tommy has opinions about what this last month was really interesting for you too.
Yeah. I just want to say on Zoe though, that, I mean, that's pretty cool, and actually I hadn't heard the rhyming game part of it, which is actually seriously impressive. To do that is quite complicated. But the rest of it, I don't know. I don't know. Is anyone familiar with Mitsuku? Yeah, I think some of the people that come here regularly. So that's the 3-year Low Note prize winning chatbot, which
4 years actually.
4 years. Oh, 4 years now.
I just won it again.
For basically the most lifelike chatbot, but it's entirely rules based. I mean, the guy's been building it in his shed for
more than 10 years.
More than 10 years. Yeah, and to be honest, any of the other things that Zoe did apart from the rhyming game could have been done by that. What I feel we can't tell from that conversation or from any conversation yet is how intelligent it actually is. I mean, that could just be a writing team that have done a bit of user research and come up with some responses to some fairly kind of obvious kind of questions like, who do you love? Or, these are, like, if anyone's built a chatbot, they're kind of common things that get asked, and especially if you're Microsoft and you've got a few big chatbots, you probably know what the likely things people are going to ask are. The rhyming game was different though, because what I really enjoyed about that was that it recognised when you didn't understand what was going on or couldn't think of something, and was like, hey, if you can't carry on, then I'm going to quit the session. And so it had some kind of awareness of the content that it was actually talking about, which kind of implies maybe an extra level of intelligence that wasn't obvious in the rest of the kind of conversation. But for me, I think the moment of the month, I would say this because I'm biased, is that Amazon have sold out of Echo Dots worldwide after Black Friday and Cyber Monday. that to me like implies that a huge number of these things were sold over the last few days. The next time you can buy one is in January, or next time you can get one shipped is in January.
Yeah.
Which suggests that this kind of idea of having a smart speaker in the home is not a fad. It's like a proper trend that, you know, everyone is going to have one, if not this year, then the year after. And I think that that's a really kind of big macro trend, seeing that kind of spread.
And that's totally fair. Those of you who are already subscribed to the newsletter, it wouldn't have been a surprise because year on year, the global voice or smart speaker shipments year on year has been growing 53%. So it's a huge space, it's growing a lot. And that all said, actually, the consumption or the use of services is still dominated by Siri. So people are buying these things and then using them a wee bit. Hands up here who has some kind of voice assistant at home. So I'd say roughly 30%, yeah, 40%?
No, more than that, half, I'd say.
Half, okay, half, good. There we go. So it's a hands up who has used it today. Yeah, there we go.
It's about 10%.
So it's a kind of sparse usage model. I want to wrap up because I know I've got
10%. I reckon 10%.
That's pretty good.
A fifth is
okay. That's good. I wouldn't disagree. What's interesting is that the use cases of those are still fairly limited but very helpful. So I often use it when my hands are busy, but increasingly that conversational component, as you see it getting more sophisticated, will become more interesting. The way we see it is that the screen is going to be a natural part of that. So there's certain things that are very hard to communicate just with voice. Have you played with mixed mode?
Yeah. But I'm actually not a strong believer in multimodal yet, or at least not in the way that they're presented with these kind of like the Echo Show or the Google Home Hub, where you're buying this kind of rather expensive device that has a screen on it, and it's like, I don't need another screen in my house, I've got a TV. Multimodal transferring between a smart speaker and your phone is super interesting, and I think Google are much further advanced on that than Amazon. If you're looking for kind of really good example of multimodal, you really need to look to Google. And I think that, for me, multimodal is mainly about, it's kind of like service design. I mean, a perfectly valid multimodal experience is to speak to a voice assistant and then to email you some information. It doesn't have to be displayed.
Nice.
It's basically any other way of interacting with an assistant that isn't inside the smart speaker.
Great. Yeah, I mean, it turns out our eyes are still pretty good things to use to consume information, right? So there's a massive amount to cover, and we've got the archives. If you go to CX-News, there's also medium.com/speakingnaturally will give you access to the archives and news. One edition just published just yesterday. I'm going to whirl through some of these. There's no way I can go into more. I just want to leave you hungry so you can sign up and learn more and hopefully get real value. Everyone who has signed up is finding it very useful, and that's because we do this stuff every day and we really know what's going on. We find it very interesting.
We've got Nico on the line, so better be quick.
Yeah, sure. No, I'll wrap up. The main thing was the companionship is the big thing. Understanding is interesting because I lost my notes here. I'll wrap up. These are the spaces that where are we? No, I've lost it. Okay. So let's see if I can jump. Understanding augmentation. So understanding, there's been some really interesting developments around this is taking text and saying what is the real intent, what's really the meaning here. There's been some great developments in there. Augmentation. So I think I'm going to skip through to the other thing that was pretty interesting, I thought. There was a novel published called One the Road, entirely generated by an AI, by collecting material from as a car drove through parts of the US. That was pretty fun. Delegation. So we've got Google Duplex starting to roll out, and there's a video we have of someone in a restaurant receiving and having a conversation with Google Duplex, and so it's the delegation model because Google's calling on your behalf and having a conversation with a human. This kind of stuff's going to happen more and more as a model. Companionship we talked about. Autonomy is interesting, so we've got a link to a video of Baby X and a documentary of this baby that's a completely virtual baby right down to the virtual nervous system. It's really quite striking stuff. So hopefully that leaves you hungry to learn more and check out this from these points. this is the framework we use for measuring quality of chatbots, the autonomy, ambiguity, conversation, and emotion. And what we have just today is that we had this a plain English guide for chatbots, which we have licensing for, and today, this is a special discount for you guys, 25% off if you're interested in getting this for your business. And this is the only guide we know. It's plain English, but it helps you really understand from a top level what's going on and what you can do so you can create a strategy with confidence. Okay, and that's the link. So if you want to go there and sign up, then that will mean you can rest assured you will keep up to date because we will do that for you. Right, thanks very much.